and took a deep breath. She had one person left to call. Her older brother Miguel had moved to Los Angeles 3 years ago for work. He rarely answered her calls anymore, but maybe, just maybe, he would help his little sister one more time. Sarah scrolled through her contacts and found Miguel's number. Her fingers trembled as she dialed. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a voice answered, but it wasn't Miguel. Alexander Blackwood speaking. Sarah froze. The voice was deep, confident, nothing like her brother's warm tone. "I'm sorry, I think I have the wrong number. I was trying to reach my brother." "No problem," the man said, but then he paused. "Are you okay? You sound upset." Sarah almost hung up. Strangers didn't care about her problems, but something in his voice made her hesitate. "I'm fine. Sorry to bother you." "Wait," Alexander said quickly. "I know this sounds crazy, but I'm having the worst day of my life. Sometimes talking to a stranger helps." "What's your name?" "Sarah," she replied, surprising herself. "Sarah Martinez." "Nice to meet you, Sarah." "I'm Alex." "What's got you so upset?" Sarah found herself telling the stranger everything. About the eviction notice, the unpaid bills, working 2 jobs and still falling behind. About Tommy asking why they might have to move again. About feeling like she was failing as a mother. Alexander listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "How much do you need to keep your apartment?" "What?" Sarah asked, shocked. "How much money do you need?" "For the rent." Sarah's heart pounded. "I can't ask you for money. I don't even know you." "You didn't ask." "I offered." "How much?" $2,000, Sarah whispered. "But I could never pay you back." "What if I told you I could help?" "No strings attached?" Sarah laughed bitterly. "Nothing in life is free. Especially not $2,000 from a stranger." "You're right to be careful," Alexander said. "But what if I told you I'm worth about $50 million? What if I said 2,000 is nothing to me, but everything to you?" Sarah's jaw dropped. "You're lying." Google Alexander Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Industries. "I'll wait." With shaking fingers, Sarah searched the name. Photos of a handsome man in expensive suits filled her screen. Articles about his tech company, his charity work, his business success. Her heart raced. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You're real. Very real. And I want to help you, Sarah. But I need you to trust me." "Why would you help me?" "You don't know me." Alexander was quiet for a moment. "Because 5 years ago, I was homeless. I slept in my car for 6 months. I know what it feels like to be desperate. I know what it's like to have people look right through you like you don't exist." Sarah felt tears in her eyes. "That's hard to believe. I'll prove it to you." "What's your address?" Sarah hesitated, then gave him the address. 20 minutes later, there was a knock at her door. Sarah opened it to find a delivery man holding a huge bag of groceries and an envelope. "Sarah Martinez?" he asked. "Yes. This is for you. Already paid for." Sarah opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a cashier's check for $2,000 and a note for your rent. No strings attached. "But I'd like to talk to you again tomorrow. If you're interested, call me. Alex." Sarah collapsed onto her couch, staring at the check. Tommy ran over from his toys. "Mommy, why are you crying?" "Happy tears, baby," Sarah said, hugging him tight. "We get to stay home." That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She kept staring at the check, at the groceries filling her empty fridge, at the note. Who was this man? Why had he helped her? What did he want in return? The next morning, she called the number. "I was hoping you'd call," Alexander said. "I don't understand any of this," Sarah said. "People don't just give away money." "I do. But I also have a proposition for you." Sarah's stomach dropped. Here it came. The catch. "I need someone I can trust," Alexander continued. "Someone honest. Someone who knows what it's like to struggle. I have a job offer for you." "What kind of job?" "Come to my office today. Bring Tommy if you need to. I'll explain everything." 2 hours later, Sarah stood outside the gleaming Blackwood Industries building, holding Tommy's hand. Her old dress was clean but worn. She felt completely out of place. The receptionist smiled warmly. "Sarah Martinez? Mr. Blackwood is expecting you." They took the elevator to the top floor. The doors opened to reveal a modern office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Alexander Blackwood stood up from behind a massive desk. He was even more handsome in person, tall with dark hair and kind eyes. "Sarah," he said, walking over. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for helping me," she replied, still feeling overwhelmed. Alexander knelt down to Tommy's level. "And you must be Tommy. I have some toys in that corner if you'd like to play." Tommy looked at his mom, who nodded. He ran off to explore. Please, sit, Alexander said, gesturing to a comfortable chair. I want to explain everything. Sarah sat down, her hands folded in her lap. I'm listening. My company is about to merge with another tech firm. It's a huge deal, worth hundreds of millions. But I suspect someone on my team is stealing money. I need someone from outside the company to investigate, someone I can trust completely. Why me? I'm not qualified for something like that. You have a degree in accounting, right? Sarah nodded, surprised he knew. And you've worked in bookkeeping before? Yes, but how do you know that? Alexander smiled. I did some research. I told you, I need someone I can trust. Someone who knows the value of money because they've lived without it. Someone who won't be tempted by bribes or threats. This sounds dangerous. It could be. But it pays $50,000 for 3 months of work, plus full benefits and childcare for Tommy. Sarah's eyes widened. That was more money than she made in a year. If you find what I think you'll find, there's a permanent position waiting for you. Head of internal audit. $100,000 a year. Sarah stared at him. This is insane. Yesterday I was about to be evicted. Today you're offering me a career. Sometimes life changes in an instant, Alexander said. The question is, are you brave enough to take the chance? 3 months later, Sarah had become Alexander's most trusted employee. Working late in her office, she discovered something that made her blood run cold. The financial records showed millions of dollars missing, but not from where Alexander expected. The money was being stolen from the employee pension fund and charity donations. Worse, the signatures on the transfer documents looked exactly like Alexander's. Sarah's investigation skills had impressed everyone. She caught discrepancies that trained auditors missed. She tracked money trails that seemed impossible to follow. Alexander praised her work constantly, telling the whole company how valuable she was. Sarah felt proud and accomplished for the first time in years. But Sarah's success was about to become her downfall. Victoria Sterling, Alexander's longtime business partner and the company's chief operating officer, had been watching Sarah with growing jealousy. Victoria was beautiful, educated at Harvard, and came from old money. She had expected to marry Alexander eventually. They had dated years ago, and she never got over him. She's just a cleaning lady you felt sorry for, Victoria told Alexander one evening as they reviewed quarterly reports. Don't you think it's strange how quickly she found all these problems? Maybe she's creating them. Alexander looked up from his papers. Sarah saved this company. Her work is flawless. Alex, think about it, Victoria said, moving closer to his desk. She shows up out of nowhere. You give her access to everything, and suddenly we have massive financial problems? What if she's the one stealing? That's ridiculous. I trust Sarah completely. Victoria's smile was cold. You trust her because you feel guilty about your privileged life. But she's using your guilt against you. Poor single mothers don't become financial experts overnight. Over the next few weeks, Victoria planted seeds of doubt. She questioned Sarah's credentials in front of other executives. She suggested that maybe Sarah's discoveries were too convenient. She reminded Alexander constantly that Sarah came from nothing and might be tempted by the company's wealth. I'm just worried about you, Victoria would say. I care about this company as much as you do. We can't let emotions cloud our judgment. Sarah noticed the change immediately. Alexander became distant and cold. He stopped praising her work. He started questioning her methods and double-checking everything she did. When she tried to show him new evidence about the theft, he barely listened. Maybe you should focus on the smaller accounts, he said dismissively. Leave the major investigations to the senior staff. Sarah felt confused and hurt. Did I do something wrong? Just follow orders, Sarah. That's what I pay you for. The words stung like a slap. Sarah had thought they were partners, maybe even friends. Now she felt like just another employee he could dismiss. Victoria made her move during the company's annual board meeting. Standing in the conference room filled with investors and executives, she presented her own investigation. I've discovered that Sarah Martinez has been embezzling funds, Victoria announced, projecting documents on the screen. The evidence is overwhelming. Sarah's heart stopped. The documents showed her digital signature on transfer authorizations she had never seen before. Bank records showed deposits to an account with her name on it. This is impossible, Sarah gasped. I never signed these. I don't even have that bank account. The evidence speaks for itself, Victoria replied smoothly. Alex, I know this is difficult. She manipulated your kind heart, but we have to protect the company. Alexander stared at the documents, his face unreadable. Sarah looked at him desperately, waiting for him to defend her. They had worked together for months. He knew her character. He knew she would never steal. Instead, Alexander stood up slowly. Sarah, you're fired. Security will escort you out. Alex, please, Sarah begged, tears streaming down her face. You know me. You know I would never do this. I thought I knew you, Alexander said coldly. I was wrong. Two security guards stepped forward. Sarah felt her world collapsing. What about Tommy? What about the daycare you promised? What about everything you said? That was before I knew what you really were, Alexander replied, not even looking at her. Victoria watched with satisfaction as security escorted Sarah out of the building. Other employees stared and whispered. Sarah's face burned with shame and betrayal. In the parking lot, Sarah sat in her old car crying. Her phone buzzed with a text from Alexander. Don't try to contact me again. Consider yourself lucky I'm not pressing charges. Sarah stared at the message in disbelief. The man who had saved her life, who had given her hope and purpose, now believed she was a thief. The worst part was that she had trusted him completely. She had let herself believe that someone finally saw her worth. That night, Sarah sat in her apartment with Tommy, trying to explain why Mommy was sad. Did the nice man fire you? Tommy asked, remembering Alexander from their visits to the office. Yes, baby, Sarah whispered. He fired Mommy. But why? You worked so hard. Sarah didn't have an answer. She had worked harder than ever in her life. She had been loyal, honest, and dedicated. And it meant nothing. Victoria had won. She had Alexander's ear and his trust. She had convinced him that Sarah was a manipulative thief who had used his kindness against him. And now Sarah was exactly where she started, alone, broke, and desperate. But Sarah didn't know that Victoria had made one crucial mistake. In her rush to frame Sarah, she had left a digital trail that would eventually lead back to her. The real thief was about to be exposed, but not before Sarah lost everything she had worked so hard to build. 6 weeks after being fired, Sarah sat on a park bench watching Tommy play on the broken playground equipment. They had been evicted 3 days ago. Their few belongings were stuffed into garbage bags in her car. Last night they had slept in the car behind a 24-hour diner. Tonight, she didn't know where they would go. The money Alexander had given her for rent was long gone. No one would hire her. Victoria had made sure of that, spreading word throughout the business community that Sarah Martinez was a thief. Every job application was rejected. Every interview ended with "we'll call you" in silence. Sarah's stomach growled. She had given Tommy the last of their crackers an hour ago. She had 43 cents in her pocket and a quarter tank of gas in her car. The homeless shelter had a 2-week waiting list. She was out of options. Mommy, I'm hungry, Tommy said, running over to her. Sarah's heart broke. I know, baby. We'll eat soon. When is soon? Sarah didn't have an answer. She watched other families in the park, children with full bellies and clean clothes, parents who didn't have to choose between gas money and food. She had been one of those families for a brief, wonderful moment. Now she was invisible again. An elderly woman sat down on the other end of the bench. She was well-dressed, but not flashy, with kind eyes and silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. Sarah tried to look normal, like she wasn't homeless and desperate. Beautiful boy, the woman said, watching Tommy play. Thank you, Sarah replied quietly. I'm Rose, the woman said. Rosechin. I come here every day to feed the ducks. Sarah. And that's Tommy. Rose opened a bag of bread and started tossing pieces to the ducks in the pond. Tommy ran over, fascinated. Can I help feed them? He asked politely. Of course, sweetheart, Rose said, handing him some bread. Sarah watched her son laugh for the first time in weeks. Rose talked to Tommy like he mattered, asking about his favorite animals and colors. She treated him with respect and kindness. He's a good boy, Rose said to Sarah. You've raised him well. Sarah felt tears in her eyes. I'm trying. Being a parent is the hardest job in the world, Rose said gently, especially when you're doing it alone. Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. Are you okay, dear? You look tired. Sarah almost lied. She had gotten good at pretending everything was fine. But something about Rose's genuine concern broke down her walls. We're homeless, Sarah whispered. I lost my job 6 weeks ago. We've been sleeping in my car. Rose's face filled with compassion, not judgment. Oh, honey, that's terrible. What happened? Sarah found herself telling Rose everything. About Alexander, about the job that seemed too good to be true, about Victoria's lies and betrayal, about being framed and fired and blacklisted. Rose listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or making sympathetic sounds. The worst part, Sarah said, wiping her eyes, is that I still can't understand how he could believe I would steal. After everything we went through together, after all the work I did, he just threw me away like garbage. Some people are easily manipulated when their trust is broken, Rose said thoughtfully. It doesn't excuse what he did, but hurt people often hurt others. Tommy ran back over, grass stains on his knees. Mommy, can we come back tomorrow to feed the ducks? Sarah's heart sank. Tomorrow they might be in another city, looking for work or shelter. We'll see, baby. Rose stood up. I have to go now. But Tommy, would you like to take some bread home for later? She handed him a whole loaf from her bag. Sarah started to protest, but Rose held up her hand. It's just bread, Rose said. Everyone deserves to eat. That evening, Sarah and Tommy shared peanut butter sandwiches made from Rose's bread. It was the first real meal they'd had in days. Sarah felt a tiny spark of hope. Maybe there were still good people in the world. The next morning, Sarah was back at the park, applying for jobs on her phone while Tommy played. Rose appeared at her usual time with her bag of duck food. Any luck? Rose asked, sitting beside her. 3 more rejections, Sarah said. I think Victoria has poisoned every company in the city against me. What about outside the city? I can't afford to move. I barely have gas money. Rose was quiet for a moment. Sarah, can I ask you something? Sure. If you could prove your innocence, would you? Sarah looked at her strangely. Of course. But how? Victoria covered her tracks perfectly. What if I told you I might be able to help? Sarah stared at Rose. What do you mean? Rose smiled mysteriously. Let's just say I'm not just a retired woman who feeds ducks. I have some resources, some connections, some skills that might be useful. I don't understand. Meet me here tomorrow at the same time. And Sarah? Bring everything you remember about those financial documents. Every detail, no matter how small. That night, Sarah lay in her car with Tommy sleeping beside her, thinking about Rose's words. Who was this woman? What kind of help could she offer? Sarah had been disappointed so many times that she was afraid to hope. But as she watched Tommy sleep peacefully, clutching the toy duck Rose had bought him that afternoon, Sarah made a decision. She would trust Rose. She would fight back. She would prove her innocence, not just for herself, but for her son. Victoria Sterling thought she had one. Alexander Blackwood thought he had been clever to fire the thieving employee before she could steal more. But they had both underestimated Sarah Martinez. And they had no idea that Rose Chin, former FBI financial crimes investigator, had just decided to take on their case. Rose Chin's small apartment was nothing like Sarah expected. The walls were covered with certificates from the FBI Academy, commendations for financial crimes investigation, and photos with important-looking officials. A computer setup that looked more advanced than anything at Blackwood Industries hummed quietly in the corner. 25 years with the FBI, Rose explained, pouring tea. Specialized in corporate fraud and embezzlement. I retired 5 years ago, but old habits die hard. Sarah sat on the couch, still processing everything. Why are you helping me? Because I've seen this exact pattern before. The fake documents, the convenient timing, the perfect frame job. Victoria Sterling is good, but she's not as smart as she thinks. Rose pulled up files on her computer. I've been investigating Blackwood Industries since you told me your story. Victoria has been stealing for 2 years, small amounts at first, then bigger chunks. She got greedy when she heard about the merger. Can you prove it? I'm working on it. But Sarah, I need you to do something difficult. I need you to get back inside that company. Sarah's heart sank. They'll never hire me back. Alexander hates me. Not Blackwood Industries. Sterling Financial Group. Victoria's family company. Sarah stared at her. You want me to work for the woman who destroyed my life? I want you to gather evidence. Victoria thinks she's won. She's getting careless. Her own company's books will show the money trail we need. 3 weeks later, Sarah walked into Sterling Financial wearing a professional dress Rose had bought her. She had dyed her hair blonde and wore glasses. Her resume listed fake references and a different work history. Rose's FBI contacts had created a complete new identity. Sarah Matthews, financial analyst from Phoenix. Victoria barely glanced at her during the interview. Can you start Monday? She asked dismissively. Yes, ma'am. Good. We need someone to organize our old financial records. It's boring work, but it pays well. Sarah almost smiled. Victoria had just given her access to exactly what she needed. While Sarah worked undercover, Alexander's world was falling apart. The company merger was in trouble. Investors were asking hard questions about the missing money. Two major clients had pulled their contracts after hearing rumors about financial problems. Alexander sat in his office, staring out the window. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had made a terrible mistake. Something about Sarah's reaction when he fired her kept haunting him. The shock in her eyes had seemed genuine. Her tears had seemed real. "You're brooding again," Victoria said, entering his office without knocking. "The merger is falling apart," Alexander said. "Maybe we moved too fast firing Sarah. Her work was always accurate." Victoria's jaw tightened. "Alex, she stole from you. From us. Don't let guilt cloud your judgment. What if we were wrong?" "We weren't wrong. The evidence was clear." But Victoria was lying, and the stress was showing. She had dark circles under her eyes. She snapped at employees. She made careless mistakes in meetings. The stolen money was hidden in offshore accounts, but moving it around was getting complicated. Other board members were starting to ask uncomfortable questions. Meanwhile, Sarah was building her case. Working late nights at Sterling Financial, she traced money transfers, copied documents, and photographed evidence. Rose guided her every step, teaching her advanced investigation techniques. "Look at this," Sarah said one evening, showing Rose bank records on her phone. Victoria transferred $5 million from Blackwood Industries to a Sterling Financial account, then immediately moved it to the Cayman Islands. "Perfect," Rose said. "We're almost ready." Sarah had also discovered something else. Victoria had been planning the frame job for months. She had created the fake bank account in Sarah's name weeks before the board meeting. She had forged Sarah's signature by scanning it from employment documents. Everything had been calculated and planned. "She's a sociopath," Rose said, reviewing the evidence. "She destroyed your life without a second thought." Sarah felt anger burning in her chest, but also satisfaction. She made one mistake. She underestimated me. Alexander's personal life was crumbling too. He couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on work. His assistant quit after Victoria screamed at her. Two department heads requested transfers. The happy, productive company culture Sarah had helped create was gone. Late one night, Alexander found himself driving past Sarah's old apartment building. He sat in his car, remembering the day he had first helped her. She had seemed so grateful, so genuine. Had he really been that wrong about her character? His phone rang. "Victoria, where are you?" she demanded. "We have the quarterly reports to review." "I'm going home," Alexander said. "I'm tired." "Alex, you can't fall apart now. We're so close to closing the merger." But Alexander wasn't sure he wanted the merger anymore. He wasn't sure he wanted any of this. Success felt hollow when it was built on betrayal and suspicion. Victoria hung up and threw her phone across her office. Alexander was becoming weak, sentimental. If he kept questioning the Sarah situation, he might discover the truth. She needed to act fast. She called her lawyer. "I want to press charges against Sarah Martinez for embezzlement. Full prosecution." "Are you sure?" "The evidence is circumstantial." "Do it. I want her in jail before she can cause more trouble." But Victoria didn't know that Sarah Matthews was sitting 3 offices away, recording every phone call Victoria made. Rose's FBI equipment could intercept calls, emails, and text messages. They had everything they needed. "It's time," Rose told Sarah the next morning. "We take her down tomorrow." Sarah looked at herself in the mirror. 3 months ago, she had been a broken woman sleeping in her car. Now she was about to expose one of the city's most powerful businesswomen. She had learned to investigate, to gather evidence, to build an airtight case. Rose had taught her skills she never knew she had. "What about Alexander?" Sarah asked. "What about him?" "He believed her lies. He threw me away without even giving me a chance to defend myself." "He was manipulated," Rose said gently. "Hurt people make bad decisions. He hurt me worse than anyone ever has. The question is, do you want justice or revenge?" Sarah thought about Tommy, who was finally sleeping in a real bed again thanks to Rose's help. She thought about all the other innocent people Victoria might frame in the future. She thought about Alexander, alone in his office, probably regretting his choices. "Justice," Sarah said firmly. "Always justice." The FBI raid on Sterling Financial Group made national news. Victoria Sterling, heiress to a business empire, was arrested on 17 counts of embezzlement, fraud, and money laundering. The evidence was overwhelming: recorded phone calls, bank records, forged documents, and a digital trail spanning 2 years. Former FBI agent Rose Chin led the investigation, the news anchor reported. Working with an anonymous informant, Agent Chin uncovered a sophisticated embezzlement scheme that stole over $12 million from multiple companies. Sarah watched the news from Rose's apartment, holding Tommy on her lap. Seeing Victoria in handcuffs felt surreal after months of being painted as the criminal. Anonymous informant? Sarah asked. Rose smiled. Your identity is protected. Victoria will never know who brought her down. The story dominated headlines for days. Billionaire heiress arrested in massive fraud scheme. FBI exposes corporate embezzlement ring. Sterling financial empire crumbles. Alexander sat in his office, watching the news coverage with growing horror. The reporter was explaining how Victoria had framed an innocent employee to cover her crimes. The timeline matched perfectly with Sarah's firing. His phone rang constantly. Reporters, investors, board members, all wanting to know how his company had been victimized by his own business partner. But Alexander could barely focus on their questions. He was remembering Sarah's face when he fired her, the genuine shock and betrayal in her eyes. Mr. Blackwood? His assistant's voice came through the intercom. There's someone here to see you. She says it's about the Sterling case. Send them in. Alexander expected a lawyer or FBI agent. Instead, Rose Chin walked into his office. She was smaller than he expected, but her presence filled the room. Mr. Blackwood, I'm Rose Chin. I led the investigation into Victoria Sterling. Alexander stood up, shaking her hand. Agent Chin, I can't thank you enough for exposing the truth. I'm retired, actually. But I couldn't let an innocent woman be destroyed by lies. Alexander's stomach dropped. Sarah Martinez. The woman you fired for crimes she didn't commit. The woman whose life you destroyed because you believed a manipulative sociopath. Alexander sank into his chair. Oh God, what have I done? You made a mistake, Rose said, her voice stern but not unkind. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Where is she? I need to apologize. I need to make this right. She's been through hell because of your decision. Homeless, blacklisted, nearly destroyed. But she survived. And she's the one who helped me bring Victoria down. Alexander stared at her. Sarah helped you? She worked undercover at Sterling Financial for 2 months. She gathered evidence, recorded conversations, risked her safety to expose the truth. She saved your company, Mr. Blackwood. She saved you. Alexander felt like he was going to be sick. I don't understand. Why would she help me after what I did to her? Because she believes in justice. Because she's a better person than you gave her credit for. Rose placed a business card on his desk. Sarah is starting her own financial investigation firm. She's already got 3 major clients who want someone they can trust. Someone who knows what it's like to fight for the truth. Alexander picked up the card. Martinez Investigations in simple, professional lettering. She's not the desperate single mother you met by accident anymore, Rose continued. She's a skilled investigator who's about to become very successful. The FBI is considering offering her a consulting position. 2 law firms want to hire her full-time. I want to see her, Alexander said. I need to apologize properly. She'll be at the FBI commendation ceremony next Friday. They're giving her a civilian service award for her work on the Sterling case. Alexander's eyes widened. Sarah's getting an FBI award? She's a hero, Mr. Blackwood. The woman you threw away like garbage is about to be recognized as one of the finest investigative minds in the city. After Rose left, Alexander sat alone in his office, staring at Sarah's business card. He thought about their first phone call, how desperate she had sounded. He remembered giving her money for formula, thinking he was helping someone who needed saving. Now she was the one who had saved him. The FBI ceremony was held at the federal building downtown. Alexander arrived early, his heart pounding. He hadn't seen Sarah in 4 months, not since the day he fired her. He didn't know if she would even speak to him. When Sarah entered the room, Alexander barely recognized her. She wore a professional Navy suit, her hair styled elegantly. She carried herself with confidence and grace. Tommy, now 5 years old, walked beside her in a small suit and tie. Ladies and gentlemen, the FBI director announced, I present Sarah Martinez, recipient of the FBI Director's Award for Exceptional Service by a Private Citizen. The audience applauded as Sarah accepted the award. She gave a brief, gracious speech about justice and the importance of standing up for truth. Alexander watched from the back of the room, his chest tight with emotion. After the ceremony, people surrounded Sarah, congratulating her, asking for business cards, offering jobs. She was poised and professional, nothing like the broken woman he had fired months ago. Alexander waited until the crowd thinned before approaching her. When Sarah saw him, her smile faded. Hello, Alexander, she said quietly. Sarah, Alexander struggled for words. I'm sorry doesn't seem like enough. You're right. It doesn't. They stood there for a moment, the weight of everything that had happened between them hanging in the air. I know what you did, Alexander said. Rose told me. You helped expose Victoria even after what I did to you. I did it for justice, not for you. I know. But Sarah, I need you to know that I regret every single thing I said to you. Every decision I made. I was wrong about everything. Sarah looked at him for a long moment. Yes, you were. Is there any way I can make this right? Any way I can earn your forgiveness? Before Sarah could answer, a reporter approached. Ms. Martinez, we'd love to interview you about your investigation techniques. Sarah turned to the reporter with a professional smile. Of course. Alexander watched as she was led away, Tommy holding her hand proudly. She didn't look back. Standing alone in the federal building, Alexander realized that Sarah Martinez didn't need his apology. She didn't need his money or his job offers. She had built something better than anything he could have given her. She had built a life where she would never again be at the mercy of someone else's judgment. 6 months later, Sarah's investigation firm was thriving. Martinez Investigations had exposed 3 major corporate fraud cases, saved a pension fund from collapse, and helped recover millions in stolen assets. Sarah had hired 4 employees and was considering opening a second office. Tommy was enrolled in a good school and had his own room in their beautiful apartment. Sarah could afford everything she had ever dreamed of, but more importantly, she had earned respect and recognition for her skills and integrity. On a Tuesday evening, as Sarah worked late in her office, her assistant knocked on the door. Ms. Martinez? There's someone here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's important. Sarah looked up from her computer. Who is it? Alexander Blackwood. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't seen Alexander since the FBI ceremony 6 months ago, though she had heard about his struggles. Blackwood Industries was barely surviving. The merger had fallen through after Victoria's arrest. 3 board members had resigned. Alexander had been forced to sell his house and luxury cars to keep the company afloat. Send him in, Sarah said quietly. Alexander entered her office looking nothing like the confident CEO she remembered. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his face was gaunt, and his eyes were red-rimmed from lack of sleep. He looked like a broken man. Hello, Sarah, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Alexander, please, sit down. He sat across from her desk, the same desk where she had once begged him to believe in her innocence. The roles had completely reversed. I've been coming here for weeks, Alexander said, staring at his hands. Sitting in my car outside, trying to work up the courage to come in. What do you want, Alexander? I want to beg you to forgive me, he said, his voice breaking. I want to get on my knees and beg you to give me another chance. But I know I don't deserve it. Sarah studied his face. The arrogance was gone. The quick judgment, the cold dismissal, the cruel words, all of it had been replaced by genuine remorse. I lost everything, Alexander continued. My company is failing. My reputation is destroyed. I have no friends, no family who still speak to me. But that's not why I'm here. Then why are you here? Because I can't live with what I did to you. I can't sleep at night knowing that I destroyed an innocent woman's life because I was too proud and too stupid to see the truth. Tears started flowing down his cheeks. You were the best thing that ever happened to my company. You were honest and loyal and brilliant. And I threw you away like you were nothing. Sarah felt her own eyes filling with tears, but she remained silent. I know you don't owe me anything, Alexander said. I know you have every right to hate me. But I need you to know that firing you is the biggest mistake of my life. Believing Victoria over you was the worst decision I ever made. Alexander. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he said quickly. I'm not asking you to help me save my company. I'm not asking for anything except the chance to tell you that you were right about everything. You were innocent, you were trustworthy, and you deserved so much better than what I gave you. Sarah stood up and walked to the window. The city lights twinkled below, the same view she had once admired from Alexander's office when she thought they were partners. Do you know what the worst part was? Sarah said, not turning around. Tell me. It wasn't being fired. It wasn't being homeless or hungry or desperate. It was realizing that someone I trusted, someone I thought saw my worth, could throw me away so easily. Alexander's shoulders shook with silent sobs. I believed in you, Sarah continued. I thought we were building something together. I thought you knew who I was. I didn't know who you were, Alexander said. That's what makes this so unforgivable. I knew you were good and honest and loyal, but I let fear and manipulation cloud my judgment. I let Victoria poison my mind against the best person I had ever known. Sarah turned to face him. Why should I forgive you? What's changed? Nothing, Alexander said. I'm still the same coward who believed lies over truth. I'm still the same man who hurt you when you needed support. I haven't changed, Sarah. But maybe that's why I need your forgiveness so desperately. Sarah walked back to her desk and sat down. For a long moment, she just looked at him. Then she opened her desk drawer and pulled out a business card. This is Dr. Martinez, she said, sliding the card across the desk. She runs a nonprofit that helps single mothers get back on their feet. Housing, job training, childcare, everything I needed when I was struggling. Alexander looked at the card, confused. I started the foundation with my first big case earnings, Sarah continued. We've helped over 200 families so far. Women who were where I was, desperate and alone with no one to help them. Sarah, that's incredible. I named it after my mother. She died when I was 16, but she taught me that helping others was the most important thing you could do with your life. Alexander wiped his eyes. You're amazing. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand something. Success isn't about money or recognition or power. It's about using whatever gifts you have to make the world a little better. Sarah stood up and walked around her desk. You want my forgiveness? You want to make this right? More than anything. Then help me. Use your business connections, your resources, your knowledge to help other people who are struggling. Don't ask for credit or recognition. Just help. Alexander looked up at her, hope flickering in his eyes. You would let me work with you? After everything I did? I'm not offering you a job, Alexander. I'm offering you a chance to redeem yourself. To prove that you've learned from your mistakes. I'll do anything. Sarah extended her hand. Then let's get to work. Alexander stood up and shook her hand, tears still streaming down his face. Thank you, Sarah. I don't deserve this chance, but I swear I won't waste it. Everyone deserves a second chance, Sarah said. That's what my mother taught me. That's what Rose taught me. And that's what I'm teaching Tommy. How is Tommy? Sarah smiled. He's wonderful. He's in kindergarten now, and he wants to be a detective when he grows up. He says he wants to help people like his mom does. Alexander laughed through his tears. He's going to be amazing, just like his mother. 1 year later, Sarah stood at the podium of the annual Martinez Foundation Gala. The ballroom was filled with donors, volunteers, and families who had been helped by the foundation. Alexander sat at a table near the back, having quietly donated most of his remaining assets to the cause. This year, we helped 500 families, Sarah announced to applause. We provided housing for 200 children, job training for 150 mothers, and childcare for 300 families. But more importantly, we gave hope to people who had lost it. She looked out at the crowd, her eyes finding Alexander's. He was smiling, genuinely happy for the first time in 2 years. I want to thank everyone who believed in this mission, Sarah continued. Everyone who understood that helping others isn't just about charity. It's about recognizing that we all deserve dignity, respect, and a chance to succeed. After the event, Alexander approached Sarah in the lobby. Congratulations, he said. This was incredible. Thank you. And thank you for your help this year. You've been. Sarah paused, choosing her words carefully. You've been a good partner. Alexander smiled. I'm trying to be the man you thought I was when we first met. You're getting there. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching families leave the gala, children carrying balloons and parents carrying hope. Sarah, Alexander said. Yes. Thank you for teaching me that forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing to build something better from the broken pieces. Sarah smiled. That's what second chances are for, Alexander. Making sure we don't waste them. As they walked out of the hotel together, Sarah felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. She had chosen grace over revenge, justice over hatred, and hope over bitterness. And in doing so, she had discovered that the greatest success wasn't in proving her worth to others, but in using her strength to lift others up. The wrong number that had started it all had led her exactly where she needed to be. Sarah wiped the sweat from her forehead as she finished cleaning the last table at the diner. It was nearly midnight, and her feet ached from the double shift she had just pulled. But none of that mattered when she thought about Marcus waiting for her at home, probably hunched over his laptop working on another song. She had been supporting his music career for 3 years now, ever since they got married fresh out of college. While her friends landed office jobs and started climbing corporate ladders, Sarah chose love over comfort. She worked 2 jobs, waitressing at the diner during the day and cleaning offices at night, so Marcus could focus entirely on his passion. You don't have to do this, Marcus would say sometimes, guilt flickering in his eyes as Sarah counted tips on their kitchen table. I believe in you, she would always reply, kissing his cheek. Your music will change the world someday. I can feel it. Their tiny apartment was filled with Marcus's instruments and recording equipment, bought with Sarah's hard-earned money. She never complained when the rent was late because she had given him money for new guitar strings. She never mentioned how she sometimes skipped lunch to save money for his studio time. The sacrifice was worth it when she saw him perform. Marcus had a gift that made people stop and listen. His voice could make strangers cry, and his lyrics touched hearts in ways that left audiences begging for more. Sarah knew she was witnessing something special, even if the rest of the world hadn't caught on yet. Then everything changed the night Marcus performed at the Blue Moon Cafe. Sarah watched from her usual spot in the back corner, tired but proud. A woman in an expensive suit approached Marcus after his set. Sarah couldn't hear their conversation, but she saw the woman hand Marcus a business card. A record label wants to meet with me, Marcus announced when he got home, his eyes bright with excitement. This could be it, Sarah. This could be everything we've been working for. Over the next few months, Sarah watched her husband transform. The meetings led to a recording contract. His first single climbed the charts. Radio stations played his music. Suddenly, everyone wanted a piece of Marcus. Sarah continued working her jobs, but now it was to support Marcus's new lifestyle. Photo shoots, promotional events, and recording sessions all cost money that the record label didn't cover. She bought him new clothes for interviews and paid for meals with industry people when Marcus's credit card was maxed out. Once the album takes off, you can quit those jobs, Marcus promised, but he was always rushing off to another meeting, another opportunity. Sarah didn't mind. She had always been the one behind the scenes, making sure everything worked. When Marcus forgot to eat during long recording sessions, she brought him sandwiches. When he stressed about lyrics, she listened to every version until he found the right words. When he doubted himself, she reminded him of his talent. The album release party was held at an upscale venue downtown. Sarah wore her best dress, the one she had been saving for special occasions. She watched Marcus accept congratulations from music executives and journalists. His dream was finally coming true. Standing in the crowd, Sarah felt a deep satisfaction. Every late night, every missed meal, every sore muscle from her jobs had led to this moment. She had helped build this success, brick by brick, sacrifice by sacrifice. Marcus caught her eye across the room and smiled. In that smile, Sarah saw their future together. The struggling years were behind them. Now they could finally enjoy the rewards of their combined efforts. She had no idea that this night would be the beginning of the end of everything she held dear. 6 months later, Sarah barely recognized the man she had married. Marcus's first album had gone platinum, his face was on magazine covers, and their small apartment had been replaced by a mansion in the hills. But with success came changes that cut Sarah to the core. You're embarrassing me, Marcus snapped one morning as Sarah packed his lunch for a recording session. I have assistants for that now. You don't need to baby me anymore. The words stung, but Sarah tried to understand. Fame was overwhelming, and Marcus was under constant pressure. She told herself he was just stressed. The real poison came in the form of Victoria Sterling, Marcus's new manager. She was everything Sarah wasn't: polished, connected, and ruthless. Victoria had taken over Marcus's career with promises of even greater success, and she made it clear that Sarah didn't fit into her vision. Darling, you need to think about your image, Victoria would purr during their meetings, her eyes cold as they swept over Sarah's simple clothes. The wives of superstars are brands themselves. Maybe we should discuss some updates. Sarah tried to adapt. She bought expensive clothes with money from her old jobs, took classes on media training, and tried to become the glamorous wife Victoria wanted. But it was never enough. She's holding you back, Sarah overheard Victoria telling Marcus one evening. You need someone who understands this world, someone who can help you climb higher. Sarah is. Well, she's very sweet, but she's from your old life. Marcus didn't defend her. That silence cut deeper than any cruel words. The betrayal happened gradually, then all at once. Marcus started coming home later, claiming he was working. He stopped asking about Sarah's day or thanking her for the little things she did. The man who once needed her support now treated her like a stranger living in his house. We need to talk, Marcus said one October evening, his voice flat and cold. Sarah's heart sank. She knew what was coming. I've been thinking about us, he continued. not meeting her eyes. We've grown apart. I'm not the same person I was when we got married. I need space to figure out who I am now. Marcus, please, Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her face. I love you. I've always loved you. We can work through this. It's not about love, he replied, and Sarah could hear Victoria's words in his voice. It's about compatibility. We want different things now. I need someone who understands my world. The divorce papers arrived a week later. Sarah discovered that Marcus had been seeing Victoria for months. The woman who had promised to make him a star had also made herself his new partner. You'll get the apartment downtown, Marcus's lawyer explained during their meeting. And a small settlement. Mr. Richards is being generous, considering you didn't contribute financially to his success. Sarah stared at the man in disbelief. She hadn't contributed financially? She had worked herself to exhaustion to pay for Marcus's equipment, his studio time, his clothes, his meals. She had sacrificed her own dreams, her own career, her own future. I gave him everything, she said quietly. The lawyer shrugged. That's not legally measurable, ma'am. The final blow came when Sarah had to pack her belongings. As she folded her clothes into boxes, she found the stack of rejection letters Marcus had received from record labels in their early days. She remembered holding him as he cried after each one, promising him that his big break would come. At the bottom of the pile was a photo from their wedding day. They looked so young, so hopeful. Marcus's eyes were full of love as he looked at her, and Sarah's face glowed with joy and devotion. Sarah. Marcus's voice startled her. He stood in the doorway, looking uncomfortable. I want you to know that I'm grateful for everything you did. You helped me get here. Then why are you throwing it all away? Sarah asked, her voice breaking. Marcus looked away. Because I have to think about my future now. Victoria understands the business. She can help me in ways you can't. Sarah felt something die inside her chest. The man she had loved, supported, and believed in was gone. In his place stood a stranger who valued success over love, ambition over loyalty. I hope it's worth it, she whispered, sealing the last box. As Sarah walked out of the mansion with her few possessions, she turned back once. Through the window, she could see Marcus and Victoria celebrating with champagne, already planning his next album. The woman who had given everything was leaving with nothing, while the man who had forgotten how to be grateful was about to discover that success built on betrayal never lasts. The downtown apartment Marcus had generously provided lasted exactly 3 months. When the small settlement money ran out, Sarah found herself on the street with 2 suitcases and nowhere to go. The friends she had neglected during her marriage were busy with their own lives, and her family lived across the country. Sarah spent her first night sleeping on a bench in Riverside Park, clutching her possessions and jumping at every sound. She had never imagined she could fall so far so fast. The woman who once worried about paying for Marcus's guitar strings now wondered where her next meal would come from. You can't stay here, a security guard told her the next morning. Move along. For weeks, Sarah drifted from shelter to shelter, struggling to find work without a permanent address. Her old jobs at the diner and cleaning company had been filled. Employers took one look at her worn clothes and tired face and politely declined her applications. She slept in doorways, under bridges, anywhere she could find temporary safety. Her designer clothes from the mansion days were long gone, traded for practical items at thrift stores. Her hands, once soft from her comfortable life with Marcus, became rough and cracked from the constant struggle to survive. The hardest part wasn't the hunger or the cold. It was the invisibility. People looked through her as if she didn't exist. She had become one of the forgotten, the discarded, the people society preferred to ignore. One rainy November evening, Sarah huddled under the awning of a closed bookstore, shivering and exhausted. She hadn't eaten in 2 days, and her shoes had holes that let in the freezing water. She watched well-dressed people hurry past, clutching their warm coats and rushing to their comfortable homes. Rough night? Sarah looked up to see an elderly man with kind eyes and a weathered face. He wore simple clothes but carried himself with quiet dignity. This was Thomas Chin, the bookstore owner, though Sarah didn't know it yet. I'm sorry, Sarah said, scrambling to gather her things. I'll move on. No need, Thomas said gently. I was just locking up. Saw you out here and thought you might be hungry. He handed her a paper bag. Inside was a warm sandwich and a thermos of hot soup. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I can't pay you. Did I ask for payment? Thomas smiled. Sometimes we help each other just because we're human. As Sarah ate gratefully, Thomas sat beside her on the doorstep. You know, I've seen a lot of people come and go on this street. Most folks walk right past someone in need. But there's something different about you. Different how? Sarah asked bitterly. I'm homeless and broke. My husband left me for his manager. I have nothing. That's where you're wrong, Thomas said quietly. I've been watching you for weeks. I've seen you share your food with that sick woman by the bus stop. I watched you help that old man carry his groceries when his bag broke. I saw you give your only blanket to that mother with the crying baby. Sarah looked confused. Anyone would do that. No, Thomas shook his head. Most people wouldn't. Especially not when they have so little themselves. That's character, young lady. That's worth more than money or fame or success. The next morning, Thomas found Sarah again. I have a proposition, he said. My bookstore needs help. I can't pay much, but I can offer you a cot in the back room and meals. Interested? Sarah stared at him in disbelief. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. I know enough, Thomas replied. I know you help others even when you're suffering. I know you haven't let bitterness destroy your kindness. That tells me everything I need to know. Sarah's hands trembled as she accepted his offer. It wasn't much, but it was hope. That evening, as she swept the bookstore floors, Sarah found herself crying. Not from sadness this time, but from the overwhelming realization that someone still saw worth in her. Thomas had looked past her appearance and circumstances to see her heart. Thank you, she whispered to the empty store. Thank you for reminding me that I still matter. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing the streets clean. Sarah didn't know it yet, but this moment of kindness from a stranger would become the foundation for everything that came next. Sometimes, when we've lost everything, a single act of compassion can light the way forward. The woman who had been invisible was about to discover that being seen by the right person changes everything. 2 years passed in the quiet sanctuary of Thomas's bookstore. Sarah threw herself into the work with the same dedication she had once given to Marcus's career, but this time she was building something for herself. She arrived early, stayed late, and treated every customer like family. You have a gift for this, Thomas observed one afternoon as Sarah helped a young mother find the perfect bedtime story for her daughter. You see what people need, not just what they want. Sarah had transformed the little bookstore. She created cozy reading corners, organized book clubs, and started a program where customers could donate books for homeless shelters. The store became a community gathering place, and sales steadily increased. I want to teach you the business side, Thomas announced one day. Books, finances, marketing, everything. This old place needs fresh ideas, and you have them. Sarah studied everything Thomas taught her. She learned about inventory management, customer service, and financial planning. But more importantly, she learned about integrity in business. Thomas never cut corners, never cheated customers, and always kept his word. Success built on lies crumbles, Thomas would say. But success built on honesty lasts forever. Meanwhile, Marcus's world was falling apart. The news reached Sarah through gossip magazines left in the store. His second album had flopped. Victoria had been stealing money from his accounts. The IRS was investigating his taxes. His mansion was in foreclosure. Aren't you curious? Thomas asked one day when Sarah quickly turned away from a magazine with Marcus's picture on the cover. Sometimes, Sarah admitted, but not in the way you might think. I'm not happy he's suffering. I wonder if he ever thinks about what he threw away. Sarah's kindness had become legendary in the neighborhood. When Mrs. Rodriguez couldn't afford her medication, Sarah organized a fundraiser. When the homeless shelter needed volunteers, Sarah was the first to sign up. When the local school needed books, Sarah donated hundreds from the store's surplus. You're becoming quite famous around here, Thomas chuckled one evening as they closed up shop. People call you the angel of Maple Street. Sarah blushed. I just do what feels right. That's exactly why you're perfect for what I'm about to propose, Thomas said seriously. I'm getting old, Sarah. I want to retire. I want you to buy the store from me. Sarah's eyes widened. Thomas, I don't have that kind of money. I'm not asking for money, Thomas smiled. I'm asking for a promise. Promise me you'll keep helping people. Promise me you'll run this place with the same heart you've shown for 2 years. Promise me you'll never forget that success means nothing if it doesn't lift others up. Sarah's hands shook as she signed the papers. She owned something now. After losing everything, she had built something new from nothing. Word of Sarah's success began to spread beyond the neighborhood. A local newspaper ran a story about the bookstore owner who had turned her life around. Then a business magazine featured her in an article about community-focused entrepreneurship. I have some exciting news, Thomas said one morning, waving a letter. A publisher wants to offer you a book deal. They want you to write about your experience, about building a business through helping others. Sarah stared at the letter in disbelief. Someone wanted to publish her story? Her words? Across town, Marcus sat in his empty apartment, reading the same newspaper article about Sarah's success. Victoria had left him when the money ran out. His fair-weather friends had disappeared. He was alone, broke, and forgotten. He stared at the photo of Sarah smiling in her bookstore, surrounded by children at a reading event. She looked happy, truly happy in a way he hadn't seen since their early days together. The woman he had abandoned was thriving, while he had lost everything. Marcus crumpled the newspaper, but he couldn't crumple the growing realization that he had made the biggest mistake of his life. He had traded real love for fake success, and now he had neither. Sarah, meanwhile, was just beginning to understand her own power. She had learned that true success wasn't about fame or money. It was about making a difference, about lifting others up, about building something that mattered. The woman who had once lived in the shadow of another's dreams was finally creating her own light. Sarah's book, From Ashes to Grace, A Journey of Second Chances, became an unexpected bestseller. What started as a simple story about rebuilding after betrayal struck a chord with millions of readers who had faced their own struggles and setbacks. The book tour took Sarah across the country. She spoke at conferences, appeared on television shows, and gave interviews to major magazines. But unlike Marcus's shallow celebrity, Sarah's fame had substance. She used every platform to talk about helping others and building communities. The secret isn't avoiding failure, Sarah told a packed auditorium in Chicago. The secret is learning that failure isn't the end of your story. Sometimes it's just the beginning of a better chapter. The audience gave her a standing ovation. In the back row, a woman wiped away tears. "She's talking about me," the woman whispered to her husband. "She's telling my story too." Sarah's bookstore had become a model for other small businesses. She franchised the concept, opening second chapter books stores in 20 cities. Each store followed the same philosophy: books, community, and helping those in need. Sarah personally trained each manager, ensuring they understood that profit was important, but purpose was everything. "You've created something beautiful," Thomas said one evening as they sat in the original store. Now in his 80s, he spent his retirement helping Sarah with special projects. "I'm proud of you, my dear." "I learned from the best," Sarah replied, squeezing his hand. The recognition kept coming. Sarah received awards for community service, entrepreneurship, and social impact. She was invited to speak at Harvard Business School about ethical leadership. The governor presented her with a humanitarian award. But the moment that meant the most came during a quiet Tuesday afternoon at the original bookstore. A young woman approached the counter nervously. "Are you Sarah Richards?" the woman asked. "It's Sarah Chun now," Sarah replied, having taken Thomas's last name when she legally adopted him as her father. "How can I help you?" "I read your book," the woman said, tears starting to flow. "I was sleeping in my car with my 2 kids. My husband left us with nothing. Your story gave me hope. I got a job, found an apartment, and I just wanted to thank you." Sarah came around the counter and hugged the woman tightly. This was why she did everything. Not for the fame or the money, but for moments like this. Meanwhile, Marcus's downfall had become complete. His third album was canceled when he couldn't deliver the songs. He lost the lawsuit against Victoria, who had hidden her theft behind clever contracts. His remaining possessions were sold to pay debts. He found himself working at a gas station on the outskirts of town, his once famous hands now rough from stocking shelves and cleaning restrooms. Customers sometimes recognized him, but instead of asking for autographs, they whispered and pointed, making him a cautionary tale. One day, Marcus picked up a copy of Sarah's book at the station. His hands trembled as he read her words about their marriage, about her sacrifices, about the night he abandoned her. She had written about him with sadness but without bitterness, describing him as someone who had lost his way rather than someone who was evil. "I still believe the man I loved exists somewhere inside the person who hurt me," she had written. "I hope someday he finds his way back to himself." Marcus broke down crying in the empty gas station. She had forgiven him in print before he had even asked for forgiveness. Even after everything he had done, Sarah's capacity for grace humbled him. The final straw came when Marcus saw Sarah on the evening news, announcing her new foundation to help people rebuild their lives after major setbacks. She stood in front of a beautiful building that would house job training programs, counseling services, and temporary housing. Everyone deserves a second chance, Sarah said to the reporter. No one should have to rebuild alone. Marcus knew he had to see her. The woman he had thrown away had become everything he had pretended to be: successful, respected, and genuinely making a difference in the world. The contrast between who she had become and who he had become was unbearable. He had heard she would be speaking at the downtown convention center next week. It would be his chance to face her, to apologize, to beg for forgiveness he probably didn't deserve. Marcus looked at himself in the gas station's bathroom mirror. His face was worn, his hair was gray, and his eyes held the weight of his mistakes. He was about to face the woman whose life he had destroyed, the woman who had risen from those ashes to become a beacon of hope. The boy who had once dreamed of changing the world through music was gone. In his place stood a broken man who finally understood what he had lost. The downtown convention center was packed with over 2,000 people who had come to hear Sarah speak about resilience and second chances. She stood backstage, checking her notes one final time, when her assistant approached with a concerned expression. "There's a man at the back entrance," the assistant said quietly. "He says he knows you. Security wants to know if they should let him in. His name is Marcus Richards." Sarah's heart stopped. After 5 years, Marcus had finally come to find her. She closed her eyes, steadied her breathing, and made her decision. "Let him in," she said. "Give him a seat in the back row." Sarah took the stage to thunderous applause. She spoke about her journey from homelessness to success, about the importance of helping others, and about the power of forgiveness. As she talked, her eyes occasionally drifted to the back row where Marcus sat, his head bowed, tears streaming down his face. "The hardest lesson I learned," Sarah told the audience, "is that holding on to anger only hurts the person carrying it. When we forgive, we don't do it for the person who wronged us. We do it to free ourselves." After the speech, Sarah made her way through the crowd, shaking hands and signing books. She knew Marcus was waiting, could feel his presence like a weight in the room. Finally, when the last person had left, she turned to face him. Marcus looked older, broken. His expensive clothes were gone, replaced by a simple shirt and worn jeans. His face was thin, his eyes hollow with regret. This was not the confident man who had abandoned her. This was someone who had lost everything that mattered. "Sarah," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I don't know where to begin." "Hello, Marcus," Sarah said calmly. There was no anger in her voice, no bitterness. Just a quiet sadness for what had been lost. "I read your book," Marcus said, struggling to find words. "I heard about everything you've accomplished. I saw what you've built, how you've helped people. You're amazing. You always were amazing, and I was too stupid to see it." Sarah waited, letting him speak. "I threw away the best thing in my life," Marcus continued, his voice breaking. "I chose fame over love, success over loyalty. I believed Victoria when she told me you were holding me back. I was so wrong, Sarah. You weren't holding me back. You were the only real thing in my life." "I know," Sarah said simply. "I lost everything," Marcus sobbed. "The money, the fame, the music, everything. Victoria stole from me and left. My friends disappeared when I couldn't pay for their parties anymore. I work at a gas station now, and I spend every day knowing that I destroyed the only person who ever truly loved me." Marcus fell to his knees, his pride completely gone. "I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know that. But I had to come here. I had to tell you that I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what I did to you. You gave me everything, and I threw it away like garbage." Sarah looked down at the man who had once been her husband. She felt no satisfaction in seeing him broken, no joy in his suffering. Instead, she felt the same compassion she had always carried, the same grace that had helped her survive her darkest days. "Stand up, Marcus," she said gently. He looked up at her, confused and hopeful. "I forgave you a long time ago," Sarah continued. "Not because you deserved it, but because I deserved peace. Carrying anger was poisoning my heart, and I couldn't build anything beautiful with poison inside me." Marcus stood slowly, disbelief written across his face. "But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting," Sarah said. "And it doesn't mean going backward. I'm not the same person I was when you left me. I've grown, I've learned, I've become someone new. The Sarah you knew is gone." "I understand," Marcus whispered. I needed you to know how sorry I am." Sarah reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. "My foundation helps people rebuild their lives. We have job training programs, counseling services, and housing assistance. If you're serious about changing, about becoming the person you should have been all along, call this number." Marcus took the card with shaking hands. You would help me? After everything I did? I help people who are ready to help themselves, Sarah replied. The question is, are you ready to do the work? Are you ready to become someone who lifts others up instead of tearing them down? Marcus nodded frantically. Yes. Yes, I want to be better. I want to be worthy of the love you once gave me, even if I can never have it again. Sarah smiled, the first genuine smile she had given him in years. Then that's where you start. Not trying to win me back, but trying to become the person you should be. Help others the way Thomas helped me. Give without expecting anything in return. Learn what real success looks like. As Sarah walked toward the exit, Marcus called after her. Sarah, wait. Will I ever see you again? She turned back one final time. Maybe. If you do the work, if you truly change, maybe our paths will cross again. But not as husband and wife. Those people are gone. If we meet again, it will be as two people who learned from their mistakes and chose to make the world a little better. 6 months later, Sarah received a letter from Marcus. He was volunteering at a homeless shelter, using his music to bring joy to people who had nothing. He wasn't trying to restart his career. He was just trying to give back. I'm learning what you always knew, he wrote. That real success isn't about what you achieve for yourself. It's about what you give to others. Thank you for showing me grace when I deserved judgment. I'm finally becoming the man you always believed I could be. Sarah smiled as she read the letter, then filed it away. She had chosen forgiveness over revenge, grace over bitterness. And in doing so, she had not only freed herself, but had given someone else the chance to find redemption. The woman who had lost everything had gained something infinitely more valuable, the knowledge that love, when it's real, never truly dies. It just transforms, sometimes into something even more beautiful than what came before.